The dining room door of the White House opened, and Ivana Trump stepped in wearing an elegant dark outfit. Her stiletto heels echoed sharply on the glossy marble floor. The soft light from the ceiling reflected off her shimmering blonde hair, creating a striking, powerful image. Following her was Barron, Donald Trump's youngest son, his cold gaze mixed with the curiosity of a prematurely matured child. Their entrance was not noisy, yet it clearly shifted the atmosphere in the dining room. Every eye turned towards them, not due to commotion, but because of the uncanny stillness that accompanied Ivana's presence. A woman who was once Donald Trump's wife and an integral part of his life. Trump looked up, his eyes showing a hint of surprise before quickly reverting to his confident demeanor. With a half-smile on his face. "Oh, Ivana, I didn't expect you to be here today," Trump said, his voice void of any genuine astonishment, yet carrying something unusual. Ivana stared at him with a cold gaze that wasn't angry. She was used to unexpected changes and unplanned meetings, but this time something compelled her to confront the situation. In the past, she had always been the one behind him, but now, everything had changed. She entered silently like a powerful queen of a bygone empire, surveying everyone in the room. "Can we talk?" Ivana asked, without needing permission, yet without haste. Barron stood silently beside his mother, his eyes fixed on the dining table. He always had questions swirling in his mind, though he wasn't sure whom to ask. The dinner unfolded like a theatrical play, with those present suddenly becoming actors in an unspoken dialogue. Disliking the silence and tension in the room, Kid Rock broke in with a half-smile. "Let's just enjoy dinner." "Ivana, I believe everything will be different tonight." Ivana did not reply, merely nodding slightly while keeping her eyes fixed on Donald Trump. Unspoken questions hung in the air, a sort of silent banter among people who once shared their lives but were now walking divergent paths. Once the main course was served, tender roasted lamb accompanied by perfectly seasoned vegetables, Ivana did not hesitate to start the conversation. She looked at Donald with probing eyes. "Donald, I've always wondered why you are so stubborn. These races, these unfulfilled promises, are they just a means to continue seeking recognition?" she said softly. Her tone icy yet revealing a tenderness few would notice. Donald did not rush to reply. Instead, he picked up his knife and fork, slicing a piece of meat from his plate. The entire room fell silent, as if everyone was waiting for an answer. Barron observed his mother for a moment before turning his gaze back to his father. His expression inscrutable. Perhaps he is just doing what he believes is right. Bill Maher, who had been silent until then, broke the heavy atmosphere. "But I can understand the feeling when everything is just empty words." Ivana did not look at Bill. She continued to scrutinize Donald with her unwavering stare. "Do you remember promising me that you would never return to politics? And now, not only have you returned, but you're also determined to fight till the end. What change, Donald?" At last, Trump looked up, his eyes hardening. "What change? Everything has changed. Ivana, I do what I need to do." Barron remained silent, yet his presence at dinner was a significant element. He did not actively participate in the conversation, but it was clear that he could influence how the story unfolded, an heir to all that was both good and bad. "But Barron," Ivana said, "you can clearly see that politics isn't the path we should follow. It corrupts everything." Finally, Barron spoke. "Maybe, things aren't always as clear-cut as they seem." All eyes turned to Barron. His words, uncharacteristic for a child yet filled with insight and depth, resonated in the room. Dinner concluded in a reflective silence. Everyone left the dining room, but none of them felt truly at ease. There was a strange stillness, an unsatisfied feeling lingering in the air. Bill Maher pulled out his phone and recorded a message. "We've had a conversation. That's all I needed, but there will be no victory tonight." Kid Rock looked around the table, his eyes unfocused, as if pondering the events. "The truth isn't always what everyone wants to hear," he remarked, "but at least we managed to speak to one another. Blank. Underscore, blank." With the involvement of Ivana and Barron, the story was no longer solely about political confrontation. It now delved into questions of family, change, and an inerasable past. Trump, Ivana, and Barron might each be supporters of Donald Trump in their own ways. Yet during this dinner, they were confronted with uncomfortable truths and unanswerable questions. The following day, although the dinner was over, Its echoes still lingered in the air. The entire White House seemed to have sunk into a quiet, devoid of the usual merriment and laughter, replaced only by the silent stares of its occupants. Ivana and Barron, despite speaking little during the meal, were clearly inseparable. Ivana had declined Trump's invitation to stay. And now, she sat in a quiet White House room, gazing out the window where soft sunlight gently streamed in. Trump entered, unsurprised to see his ex-wife there. Yet there was something different in his eyes, a void, or perhaps an acknowledgement that he had once led a different life. One he had lost in his pursuit of power. "We need to talk," Trump began, his voice lacking its usual sternness. Ivana turned, her gaze cold yet weary. "Talk about what? We've said enough. Donald, everything we do now revolves around others. Do you know what matters most to me? It's Barron. I want him to grow up in a world untainted by others' ambitions." Trump glanced at Barron, who sat in a corner silently looking at a computer screen, a distant detachment evident. Barron did not participate in the conversation between his parents, yet his eyes seemed to take in every detail, missing nothing. He was the inheritor, but could he truly grasp all that was happening? "Barron will decide his own path," Trump said confidently. "I've done what I had to do. I will continue to do what needs to be done." Ivana raised an eyebrow. "And what if that path isn't yours?" Trump fell silent, then said, "I don't know, but if I don't act, who will? I can't just stand by and watch this country fall into the hands of those who don't know how to lead." Ivana shook her head, tired. "That isn't the way to solve problems. You can fight for what you believe in, but don't let those battles hurt the ones you love." The room remained silent for a long moment. Each person harbored their own thoughts, yet no one dared break the quiet. Barron rose, stepping closer to his parents, his eyes conveying an indescribable mix of emotions. He said softly, "Dad, Mom, I want to know where all this is leading. But I also want to know, can we look forward together without hurting each other?" Barron's question weighed heavily on the atmosphere. Both Trump and Ivana looked at him. His words a reminder of family values, the very things both had once forsaken in their quest for power. Trump sighed, placing a hand on Barron's shoulder, though his eyes betrayed some hesitation. "I'm not sure if we can, Barron, but I will try." Ivana looked at Barron, then back to Donald, her eyes full of understanding. "Perhaps it's up to us to find the answer." The next day, as the light of a new dawn shone once again on the White House, everything had changed. The forced smiles and uneasy questions were no longer the main theme. Ivana and Barron had left, not out of indifference, but because they understood that it was time to confront the unsaid. Trump stood by the window, looking out with a heavy heart. The political battle raged on daily, but now he had to face the fact that not everything could be conquered by power. Some things, like family, were beyond his control. "I will do everything to protect this country," Trump murmured to himself. "But perhaps it's time I also find myself again." Last night's dinner was more than a mere gathering. It was a reminder of what truly matters in life. And although the future remained uncertain, at least now he knew that whatever he did, he must strive not to hurt those he loved the most. The dinner at the White House wasn't really over. Even though everyone left with their own thoughts, the story continued, and while no one could predict what would happen next, one thing was clear. Their lives were about more than just politics or power. It was a tale of family, of values for which sometimes a heavy price must be paid to preserve. Barron, with all his lingering questions, would one day be the decision-maker. But could he overcome the challenges and pressures to become the person that his family and his country hoped for? That question still hung unanswered. Yet, at least in that moment, they had found a semblance of peace in confronting the inevitable conflicts.